was their fourth quarter. We're not asking for a correction. No correction necessary. Just keep it in mind. Maybe tack something on, online so that you know that you're not going to repeat it. That reporter said, oh no, that's a bad mistake. I need to correct on that. I got what I wanted. I wanted a correction, but I told him not to correct on it. I once wrote 2 or 3 stories about a money management firm here in town that shall go unnamed. And I wrote 3 stories, and on each story, they called with this little niggling complaint and demanded a correction. I will never write about them again. Never put them in, because it could never be perfect enough for them. You didn't really emphasize this point enough, and we can't transfer these assets. There was actually one of the complaints that they had is they had spun off from a different firm, and I said, well, this particular money manager had a really good track record, and they were all of a sudden in a lot of trouble with the SEC because they knew they couldn't port their track record over to the new firm. As a journalist, I didn't know that. And they wanted me to fix it for them because I said they had a great track record, and they did. But because they didn't take the whole analytical team from a regulatory point of view, they weren't allowed to advertise their track record. And I had to correct on that. And that was the last time they ever appeared under my byline. That wasn't my mistake. It was their mistake. Yes, sir.
What are some of the things that we should be careful of or watch out for when we're talking with the media? Because obviously, when you talk a little bit about being supportive, but we want to be careful about not looking stupid or saying the wrong thing. So what advice do you give along those lines?
Well, especially when you're dealing with numbers, have your numbers in front of you. Have your numbers in front of you. Know what you're talking about. Get the earnings projections right. If, for instance, you're doing an earnings story and the street is, at a midpoint here, and you misstate that, that's something that you can check out online, and it makes it hard for you to carry a lot of credibility into that conversation. So numbers are the first thing to watch out for. Always think a little, think about your compliance person leaning over your shoulder. But don't think too hard about that, because if you're worried about compliance, then you're not going to be as accessible, because you're going to start thinking and acting and talking like a lawyer, and that's not what a journalist is going to want. They just won't use it. They won't use the stuff. Take notes for yourself. Here's what I said. Here's what I talked about. And then look at your notes and make sure that that you are comfortable with what you said. If you're not comfortable about what you said, pick up the phone. And I can't tell you the number of times that sources would call me and say, "What did you hear me say?" The reporter is more than happy to say, "Here's what I heard you say, and here's what I'm going to use." And you say, "Oh, okay. Could we massage this a little bit? Could we move it over, a half an inch in this direction or that way?" I don't. They are not out to get you. 99 times out of 100, they're not out to get you. They're just out to get some decent information. And so if you're not sure of your information, it's okay to call them back. It's okay to follow up and say, how could I have been more helpful? How could I have done, provided you with better information? And that's always a good follow-up call. Teach me what you need. So the next time I call, or you call me, I can give you what, more along the lines of what you need and what you're looking for. Other questions?
Any advice about television appearances?
First of all, television appearances are few and far between. The only time you will generally be called for a television appearance is when the world blows up. That's about the only thing that hits their radar screen. We could have a flurry of local television appearances if we get to the point of defaulting on debt. Don't be afraid. Well, it's going to sound weird, but don't be afraid to have someone put makeup on you.
Okay.
I can't tell you the number of times money managers, like, look at me. The lights go on, and if they're not willing to powder you, you're going to look really dumb, especially in the summertime, because you're sweating more, and if you have a high hairline or no hairline at all, you should be aware of that. And if you look, most of you probably have high def televisions. If you look now, you can see makeup on people on television. Another thing on television, speak in short sentences. Make very compact, factual statements, because that's what translates. Recognize that when you're speaking on television, chances are they are going to take 2 or 3 sentences and they will edit them. A lot of times you'll see people and they'll cut off a sentence, and you know that the person is heading down a road, but it's gone. If they had put a simple period at the end of a sentence, then that makes the editing of the quote a lot easier to do, and it makes you sound more concise and compact. But the idea is to really keep it short. You can always tell if you watch I don't want to go on too long, but if you watch a typical news conference, especially a presidential news conference, and I worked in Washington, D.C. For a short amount of time, actually during Watergate, and you could always tell the TV reporters from the print guys, and it was mostly guys, but back in the 70s. But what would happen is that when a print guy would stand up, he or she would make a little speech prior to asking a question, and they would they try to set up the premise so tightly that the person being asked the question wouldn't be able to weasel out of it. They'd set up this premise and they'd say, well, assuming that House Bill this and this and this does this, and a lot of times they wouldn't even get to a question. It would be more of a statement. Sports reporters do that. Sports reporters will make a statement and they'll ask the idiot athlete to agree with them more or less. And so, but the difference between a print guy and a TV guy is that the really good TV guys, they would ask questions in 8 words or less. And you'd be surprised how direct that gets, and how all of a sudden you've got to give an answer in 8 words or less. So anticipate that. For instance, you end up on television and we are at the 11th hour on the debt ceiling. They say, why is this debt ceiling so dangerous? And you have to have, whereas a journalist will say, we got the debt, and they'll the print guys will go all over the map on that. But you can count on the TV person to ask you very, very, very blunt and direct questions. And so a blunt and direct question should generate a blunt and direct answer. Something really compact and tight. This is why this is scary, or this is what could happen. So that's the difference on TV. But generally speaking, financial advisors very seldom get on television, and it's because television people don't know anything about the markets. They don't know anything to really speak of about the economy. Anything else? I know we're way past our time, 10 minutes past our time, and so I want to be respectful of yours.
Well, thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Ryan.